Hi, I'm Janet. I'm a volunteer for the Lincoln Park Conservancy. Normally we do wildflower tours around the pond every month, and we're doing a virtual tour today because of our circumstances. So welcome to our virtual tour. Comes again, there's a swallowtail butterfly nectaring on the purple coneflower, also known as Echinacea purpurea. And nectaring is the behavior when the butterfly is finding nectar with its proboscis deep into each little floret that makes up the disc of that flower. So this is in the Asteraceae, or daisies and sunflower family. And each flower is actually a composite of the pink ray florets as well as the central disc, which is composed of many tiny flowers in a beautiful geometric arrangement. And these flowers mature from the outside to the inside. So on this little flower you can see the inside is still green because they haven't matured yet. And Echinacea is well known for its immune boosting properties. It's used medicinally around the country. And it's also just a darn gorgeous garden flower. Here we have a Silphium, and it's taller than I am, which doesn't take a lot. But you may notice that this time of year we're looking at flowers that are sort of waist high, chest high, head high, or above our heads. Unlike early spring, when you had to crouch down to appreciate the flowers. So these flowers are competing for the sunshine and for the attention of pollinators. And they're getting attention by their showy petals. Some of them send out a scent. They have lots of techniques for attracting the proper bugs and for defending against the bugs they don't want. This is a rosinweed, and it has sandpapery leaves. So a caterpillar or any soft-bodied bug would not be happy crawling along that leaf. So that's one of its defenses. And this is another plant in the Asteraceae, the aster family. And one thing that's remarkable about the Silphium genus is these wonderful green bracts, which are modified leaves that are going to be behind every flower head. And to me, they really add to the spectacular appearance. And we have several species of Silphium around the pond, and they're notable for their deep, deep root system that helps them survive on the prairie during drought, during a fire. If they were to be trampled, they could sprout from that root system again. So they have lots of adaptations that make the prairie a perfect place for this Silphium to grow. Okay. And this is not a Silphium, this is a plant that we looked at previously. This is Columbine, and in its flowering form, the flower hangs down toward the ground, and once it sets seed, it turns its seed capsule upward, and the birds can come and forage in these little tiny capsules for the fine little dry seeds in there, rather than spilling them down to the ground. One of the spectacular flowers this time of year at the pond is Queen of the Prairie. It has these bubblegum pink flowers in clusters at the top of a long stem, and the leaves are sort of exotic, almost tropical looking. They're rather large, and this is actually in the rose family. You'd have to get up very close to see that those are 5-petaled flowers that are typical of the rose. And this plant forms colonies. It grows by underground rhizomes, and it also has a taproot. And it's self-incompatible, which means that it cannot pollinate itself. So the pollen from this plant needs to find not just an adjacent plant, but an adjacent colony, or just another colony to pollinate. And it's helped by wind. This is wind pollinated and insect pollinated. Now, charming as the flower is, it may attract a butterfly to come and look, but it makes no nectar. But it does provide some pollen as food for bees, and the bee that uses it the most is the halictid bee. It's a sweat bee, and they're gorgeous bees because they're often metallic and have green and gold on them. They're very pretty, but they're also very tiny, so you have to get up close to appreciate them. Now, speaking of getting up close, this is reputed to have a wonderful fragrance, sort of like a lilac. Now, I have never smelled it, partly because it grows in this wet area near the pond's edge, because it likes wet feet. So that's something to look forward to someday when I'm close to the Queen of the Prairie, when it's releasing its fragrance. And another plant that likes wet feet and grows in areas at the edges of ponds and along rivers is called spikenard. And this is rather a modest little plant. It has sort of insignificant, tiny flowers, and when they're fertilized or pollinated, they'll form little deep purple berries that the birds just love. And this plant has a root that is supposed to be sort of like anise in its flavor, and Native Americans are reputed to have used the anise-flavored root to help take the bitterness out of some of their native medical preparations. Another plant that likes wet feet is buttonbush. This is a woody shrub, and it's actually in the coffee family. It has these unusual sort of Sputnik globe-shaped flowers with little protrusions, and often the protrusions on a flower will be the male part. It'll be the filament and anther with pollen. But this is actually the style, or the female part of the plant. And these are heavy nectar sources. So butterflies and bees are often found nectaring, and this one is taking its time because it must be finding plenty to drink in there. Isn't that a gorgeous butterfly? Oh. Thank you for joining us for our virtual tour around the pond, and I hope you'll come back for another one.